The mining colony sat on a small asteroid called Theta 7. It was a quiet place where people from different planets worked together to dig valuable minerals from the rocks. 200 workers lived there, and they came from 6 different alien species. Among them were 12 humans who had come from Earth to work in the mines. Director Vexlar ran the colony. He was a Xanthari, which meant he had silver scales covering his body and 4 eyes that could see very well in the dark. When the humans first arrived at his colony, he was not happy about it. Everyone in the galaxy knew that Earth was a dangerous planet. It was rated as a Class 12 death world, the highest danger level possible. Most aliens thought humans were scary because they came from such a terrible place, but Vexler had to admit that the humans were good workers. They could do jobs that would hurt or kill other species, and they never complained about hard work. Karen Mitchell was in charge of the human mining teams. She was checking the eastern section of the mines when everything went wrong. The whole colony shook as explosions started happening. Red lights flashed everywhere and loud alarms began to ring. Karen grabbed the nearest communication device and spoke into it quickly. "Everyone listen to me. This is not a practice drill. Enemy ships are coming toward us. I can see many of them on the scanner and I do not know who they are." Within just a few minutes, everyone understood what was happening. A group of Krellian pirates had found their colony. The Krellians were known throughout the galaxy as brutal raiders, who attacked small colonies and stole everything they could carry. Their ships came down from space like hungry insects, firing plasma weapons that tore through the colony's weak defenses. The colony had never been built to fight off an attack like this. Vexlar ran as fast as he could to the command center. When he got there, he found Danny Foster already working at the control panels. Danny was a human who worked as the colony's security officer. He had served in the military back on Earth before coming to work in space. Now he was trying to get everyone to safety while the building shook around them. "How many enemy ships are out there?" Vexlar asked. His voice was shaking because he was scared. "I count 23 ships and more keep coming," Danny said. His voice was calm even though the situation was very bad. "They are blocking our long-range communication systems. I can only send short messages that might get through their jamming." Another explosion hit close to them and the whole building moved. Vexlar felt his breathing become fast and difficult. He knew what Krellians did to the people they captured. They did not take prisoners. They just killed everyone and took whatever they wanted. Karen ran into the command center. Her face was covered with dirt and there was a cut on her arm. "The eastern section is lost. We are closing the emergency doors, but the Krellians will cut through them in just a few minutes." Danny's fingers moved quickly over the control panel as he set up a distress call. "Director, I can send one emergency message through their jamming, but it will be very short, and we might only get one chance to send it. Send it to the nearest council patrol ship," Vexlar ordered. His voice cracked with fear as he spoke. Danny stopped moving his hands. He looked at Karen and she nodded her head slightly at him. "Sir, the nearest council patrol is 4 days away from us, but there is a human fleet doing training exercises in the Deneb sector. They could be here in 8 hours." Vexlar's 4 eyes went wide. "A human military fleet is near here? I was not told about this." "They are doing practice exercises with the Council's 5th Fleet," Karen explained quickly. "Just training stuff and diplomatic meetings. But they are close to us, Director. Much closer than anyone else who can help." The floor shook again. Through the window, they could see Krellian landing ships touching down on the outer platforms of the colony. Soldiers in armor were getting out and starting to move toward the buildings where people were hiding. "You want to call the Deathworlders," Vexlar said slowly as he understood what they wanted to do. "You want to ask humanity's warships to come here." Danny looked directly into the director's eyes. "Sir, you know what humans do when one of our colonies calls for help. You know what we do when our people are in danger." Vexlar had heard the stories. Every species in the galaxy had heard them. Humans were friendly enough during peaceful times. They would trade and talk and laugh with other species. But when humans went to war, they became something different, something terrifying. They had a saying that made other species feel cold with fear. The saying was, "No one left behind." When humans fought to save their own people, they fought with such intensity that even the fierce Krellians looked gentle by comparison. Another explosion happened even closer than before. They could hear people screaming in the corridors outside the command center. "Send the message," Vexlar ordered. "Send it right now." Danny activated the emergency beacon. He loaded all the information about their situation into one compressed data packet. He marked it with the highest priority code that existed in the human military system. This is an SOS from Theta 7 mining colony. We are under attack by Krellian pirates. Many enemy soldiers are here and people are dying. 12 human civilians are trapped. We need help immediately. He pressed the button to send the message. The transmission burst through the Krellian jamming system in a focused beam. It traveled through space using quantum-entangled communication technology. Heading straight toward the Deneb sector where the human fleet was training, Karen came to stand next to Danny. How long until they answer us? If they got our message? Danny looked at his watch. Knowing our fleet commanders, they will start moving before they even finish reading the whole message. They heard the words 12 humans trapped, and that is all they needed to know. Vexillar sat down heavily in his chair. He watched the tactical display as more and more Krellian ships entered orbit around the asteroid. He had made his choice. Now all they could do was wait and hope that the Deathworlders would arrive in time. And he also hoped that calling them had not simply traded one nightmare for another, because everyone knew that humans were the most dangerous species in the galaxy when they were angry. Admiral Jacob Hayes stood on the bridge of his battleship called the Valiant. He was watching his fleet practice defensive formations in space. The joint training exercises with the Council's 5th Fleet had been going well for the past week. Maybe too well, Jacob thought to himself. His crew needed real challenges, not just practice drills that they could do in their sleep. Admiral, we are getting an emergency transmission, Lieutenant Maya Rodriguez called out from her station. It is coming through on the human distress frequency with maximum priority. Jacob stood up straight immediately. Play it for everyone to hear. The message started playing and the entire bridge became silent. By the time Danny Foster's voice finished describing what was happening at Theta 7, every officer on the bridge was already moving to their battle stations. Navigation, plot a course to Theta 7. Maximum speed, Jacob ordered. His voice cut through the controlled chaos like a knife. Communications, send a message to all our ships. Tell them we are leaving in 10 minutes. Sir, the Council Fleet Commander is asking to talk with you, Maya reported. Tell Commander Thelvan that we are responding to a human distress call, and we will explain everything while we travel. If he wants to come with us, he is welcome. But we are not waiting for anyone. Jacob pulled up the tactical map of the Deneb sector on his display screen. Theta 7 was 8 hours away at their normal cruising speed, but he could reduce that to 6 hours if he pushed the engines to their limits and used the gravity of a nearby dwarf star to speed them up. Captain Lisa Monroe was his tactical officer. She appeared at his side and looked at the map. Krellian warband, Admiral. The reports say there are more than 20 ships. That is not just a raiding party. That is a full assault force. How many ships do we have ready for combat? 15 capital ships, 32 support vessels, and 12 marine assault carriers. We are bringing the entire task force with us. Jacob smiled, but there was no humor in his expression. Good. Let us show these pirates what happens when they threaten human civilians. Within minutes, the human fleet broke out of their practice formation. Their ships turned in space with surprising grace for such massive vessels. The Council ships were slower to respond and had to scramble to keep up with the humans. On the bridge of the Council flagship, Commander Thelvan watched in amazement as the human warships accelerated past the safety limits that were established by Council regulations. The Valiant's engines burned so brightly that they could be seen even in the darkness of space. They will destroy their ships if they travel at this speed, Thelvan's science officer warned him. No, Thelvan said quietly. His tentacles curled in a way that his species used to show respect. They have done this before. Humans do not abandon their own people. They never have and they never will. On the Valiant, Jacob opened a communication channel that went to every ship in his fleet. All ships, this is Admiral Hayes. You have all heard the situation. 12 of our people are trapped on that colony, along with nearly 200 other civilians. Krellian pirates think they can raid a colony with humans on it and just walk away. We are going to teach them a lesson that every pirate in this sector will remember for the rest of their lives. He paused to let his words sink in. We have 6 hours to get there. Engineering teams, I want every weapon system at full power. Marines, prepare your assault teams. Fighter squadrons, run your pre-flight checks. We are going in hot and we are not leaving until every single civilian on that rock is safe. Sir, Lisa interrupted. The Krellians will see us coming long before we arrive. They will have time to kill the colonists. They could do that, Jacob agreed. But they will not. Do you know why? Because Krellian pirates are survivors above all else. They raid soft targets and they run away from hard fights. The moment they detect a full human warfleet coming out of hyperspace, they will have to make a choice. Stay and fight the Deathworlders or cut their losses and run away. You think they will run? I think they will try to run. Whether we let them escape or not depends on how much damage they have done when we get there. Captain Ryan Cooper was the commander of the Marine detachment. He joined the conversation through the communication link. Admiral, my teams are ready to deploy. If there is anyone alive down there, we will get them out. I know you will. Ryan, just make sure your people come home too. The fleet continued traveling through space at high speed, leaving the council ships far behind. In the dining halls and ready rooms throughout the task force, human soldiers prepared for battle. They moved with the calm efficiency of professionals who had trained for situations exactly like this. They checked their weapons, reviewed the floor plans of the colony, and mentally prepared themselves for what they might find when they arrived. On the observation deck of the Valiant, a young officer named Peter Shaw stood watching the stars stream past the windows. This was his first real deployment and his first potential combat situation. An older Marine named Sergeant Lisa Blake stopped beside him. First time heading into a dangerous zone, kid? Peter nodded his head. Is it always like this? This urgent? Lisa smiled at him. When it is our people in danger? Always. That is what you signed up for. That is what it means to be human in this galaxy. We do not leave anyone behind, not ever. Not even if it means going to war with every pirate fleet between here and the edge of known space. What if we are too late? Then we make sure the people who did it regret ever hearing the name humanity. But we will not be too late. 6 hours is a long time for people to hold out, especially when they know for certain that we are coming. On Theta 7, Danny Foster checked his watch again. 4 hours had passed since they sent the distress call. He had used everything available to barricade the remaining survivors in the Central Command Complex. He was using every defensive measure the colony had. The Krellians were taking their time and cutting through the colony's defenses section by section. Karen appeared beside him carrying weapons they had made from mining equipment. How much longer do we need to hold? 2 hours. Maybe less if they are really pushing their engines hard. Do you think we can hold that long? Danny looked at the sealed doors. He listened to the sound of cutting torches working through the outer barriers. He allowed himself a small smile. We are humans, Karen. We are from Earth. Holding impossible positions until reinforcements arrive is literally what we are best at. We have got this. In orbit above Theta 7, the Krellian commander received troubling news from his sensor officer. Commander, we are detecting a quantum wake signature in space. It indicates a large formation approaching fast from the Deneb sector. How large is this formation? Early readings suggest at least 40 ships. They have military configurations. Commander, the signature matches human warship profiles. The Krellian commander felt his blood run cold. Human, are you absolutely certain? Yes, Commander. They are traveling at speeds that should be impossible for ships that size. They will arrive in less than 2 hours. The commander stared at the tactical display while his mind raced. 40 human warships, a full war fleet responding to a simple mining colony. He had heard stories about humanity's military doctrine. Stories about their refusal to negotiate when their civilians were threatened. Stories about their terrifying persistence in battle. He had always thought those stories were exaggerations meant to scare people. Now, watching that fleet approach like an avenging hammer falling from the sky, he was beginning to understand the truth. The Deathworlders were coming, and they were not coming to negotiate. The command center of Theta 7 had become a fortress inside a fortress. Danny Foster and Karen Mitchell had turned every corridor leading to the sealed complex into a dangerous trap. They used mining explosives and rigged them to motion sensors. They took industrial lasers and turned them into defensive weapons. They built barricades from whatever they could move. The other 10 humans in the colony had proven their worth in the hours since the attack began. Jake Sullivan was a mining engineer, and he had modified the colony's life support system to create pressure differentials that slowed down the Krellian advance.
Amy Patterson was a geologist who used her
knowledge of the asteroid's composition to deliberately trigger small cave-ins that blocked entire sections of the colony. But everyone knew they were only delaying the inevitable. The Krellians would eventually break through. They have broken through the outer door, Vexlar announced. His scales were showing the pale blue color that meant he was very afraid. The Xanthari director had watched in amazement as the humans transformed his mining colony into a defensive position. "How much longer did you say we need to hold?" Danny looked at his watch. 90 minutes. Maybe less than that. We may not have 90 minutes left. Then we make the time, Karen said simply. She was checking the charge on her improvised plasma cutter weapon. That is what humans do. The Krellian assault team broke through the next bulkhead with a controlled explosion. They moved cautiously now, because they had learned the hard way that the humans had made every meter of corridor dangerous. 3 of their soldiers had already been killed by traps, and the Deathworlders were showing no signs of surrendering. Commander Zalkar was leading the assault personally. He growled in frustration. This should have been simple. His warband had raided dozens of colonies, and none of them had put up this kind of resistance. The other species in the colony had surrendered immediately, which was the sensible thing to do. But the humans refused to yield. "Why do they fight?" one of his warriors asked. "They are 12 against 300. They have no military weapons. They must know they cannot win." Zalkar had been thinking the same thing. Then his communications officer had told him about the approaching human fleet, and suddenly the desperate defense made terrible sense. They are buying time, he realized. They know reinforcements are coming. They are trying to survive until their fleet arrives. "What should we do, Commander?" Zalkar considered his options carefully. The smart move would be to cut their losses and retreat. His ships were loaded with stolen materials. They could leave now with a profitable haul. But if he retreated without breaking through to the command center, it would look like weakness. Other pirates would hear that Zalkar's warband had been held off by a dozen unarmed humans. His pride would not allow that to happen. "We push forward," he ordered. "We break through before their fleet arrives. Then we retreat with our prizes." Inside the command center, Danny watched the tactical display as the Krellians regrouped for a final push. The other humans gathered around him. Their faces showed exhaustion but not fear. "They are coming," he announced. "This is it. One more push and we either hold until the fleet arrives or we do not." Jake Sullivan picked up a makeshift weapon. "I did not come to this rock just to get killed by pirates. I say we make them regret every single step they take." The other humans nodded in agreement. Vexlar watched them in wonder. These Deathworlders, these beings from a planet so hostile it would kill most species within hours, were preparing to face an enemy that outnumbered them 25 to 1, and they were doing it without any hesitation. "Why do you not surrender?" he asked quietly. "You could try to bargain for your lives. Humans are valuable as hostages. The Krellians would probably take you alive." Karen looked at him with an expression the Xanthari could not quite understand. "You do not understand us very well, Director. Humans do not surrender when our people are threatened. We do not negotiate with pirates. We hold the line and we trust that our fleet is coming, because they always come. Every single time," Danny smiled at her. "Besides, can you imagine the story if we gave up now? 12 humans held off a Krellian warband for 6 hours, and then surrendered 20 minutes before the cavalry arrived. We would never live it down." Despite everything that was happening, several of the humans actually laughed. Vexlar realized something profound in that moment. These Deathworlders were not suicidal. They were not even particularly brave in the traditional sense. They were simply so absolutely certain that help was coming that surrender never even occurred to them as an option. They trusted their fleet with a faith that was almost religious. The final assault came with a roar of plasma fire and explosives. The Krellians threw everything they had at the last barricade. They were determined to break through before the human fleet arrived. Danny and his team fired back with their improvised weapons, making every single shot count. "North corridor has been breached," Amy shouted. "They are trying to flank us." "Jake, seal it," Danny ordered while firing at the advancing Krellians. Jake triggered the explosives they had planted earlier. The explosion brought down half the corridor. Rock and metal crashed down, blocking the advance but also cutting off one of their escape routes. The command center shook violently. Alarms were blaring everywhere. The Krellians were through the second-to-last barrier now. Danny checked his watch. 45 minutes until the fleet arrived. It was too long. They had fought brilliantly, but it would not be enough. Then Karen grabbed his arm and pointed at the sensor display. "Danny, look at this." The long-range sensors were damaged but still partially working. They showed something extraordinary. The human fleet had arrived early. They had dropped out of hyperspace with a precision that should have been impossible at such high speeds. and they were not slowing down at all. "Dear God," Danny whispered. "They are coming in at combat speed." Vexler stared at the display in horror. The human warships were entering the asteroid field at full battle speed. They were weaving through obstacles that would have torn apart any council vessel. Their formation was perfect. Their timing was flawless. They flew like predators that had sensed blood in the water. "Send them a signal," Danny ordered. "Let them know we are still alive." Maya Rodriguez received the signal on the Valiant and immediately told Admiral Hayes. "Sir, we have contact with the colony. They are alive and holding in the Central Command Complex. There are heavy Krellian forces between us and them." Jacob allowed himself a moment of relief. They had made it in time. His people were still alive. "Launch all fighters. Marines, prepare for assault deployment. All ships, you are cleared to fire at will. Target every Krellian vessel in orbit. I want them disabled or destroyed before we land our ground forces." He opened a communication channel to the Krellian commander. "Attention, Krellian vessels. This is Admiral Jacob Hayes of the United Earth Forces. You have attacked a colony containing human civilians. You have exactly one chance to power down your weapons and surrender if you do not comply within 30 seconds. We will consider you hostile combatants and respond with lethal force." On the lead Krellian ship, Commander Zalkar stared at the tactical display in disbelief. The human fleet was massive, far larger than their intelligence had suggested, and they were not positioning for a blockade or a siege. They were positioning for total destruction of everything in their path. "Commander, they are targeting all our ships at the same time. They have weapons locked on every single vessel we have." Zalkar knew he had only seconds to decide. Fight and die here or retreat and live to raid another day. "All ships, emergency jump procedures. Scatter pattern. Go right now." The Krellian vessels began emergency jump procedures. Their crews were scrambling to escape before the human fleet could open fire. Several ships were too slow. The Valiant's main guns fired, and 3 Krellian raiders simply ceased to exist. They were torn apart by weapons that were designed to crack open capital ships. The rest of the Krellian fleet fled into hyperspace, abandoning their ground troops without a second thought. "Should we pursue them?" Lisa asked. "Negative. Our people are still in danger on the surface. Marines, you are cleared for insertion. Get down there and secure that command center." Captain Ryan Cooper led the first wave of assault shuttles toward the asteroid's surface. Behind him, 40 more shuttles followed, loaded with Marines who were ready for combat. The Krellian ground forces saw their ships abandon them and began to panic. Inside the command center, Danny heard the unmistakable sound of human military assault shuttles. They had a specific engine note deeper than civilian craft that any human could recognize immediately. "They are here," he said simply. Karen started to laugh. Tears were streaming down her face. They had done it. They had held out long enough. The humans around her began to cheer. Their exhaustion was forgotten in the rush of relief. Even Vexler felt his scales brighten with hope for the first time in hours. The cavalry had arrived, and the Deathworlders were not happy about what they had found. The Marine assault shuttles landed on Theta 7 with practiced precision. Captain Ryan Cooper was the first one out. His armored boots hit the asteroid's surface as his display screen populated with tactical information. Behind him, 200 Marines deployed in perfect formation with their weapons ready. "All teams report in," Ryan ordered over the communication network. Squad leaders reported in sequence. Within seconds, Ryan had a complete picture of the situation. There were approximately 200 Krellian ground troops scattered around the colony. They were disorganized and their ships had abandoned them. The troops were trapped between his Marines and the barricaded command center. "This is Captain Cooper speaking to Krellian ground forces. Your ships have left you behind. Lay down your weapons and you will be taken as prisoners. Resist and we will treat you as hostile combatants. You have 60 seconds to comply." Inside the command center, Danny and Karen listened to the broadcast with grim satisfaction. The humans had not come to negotiate or show mercy. They had come to end this situation one way or another. Vexler heard something in the human captain's voice that made his scales ripple with unease. It was not anger or rage. It was something colder, something professional and calculated. "Do you think they will surrender?" the Xanthari director asked. Danny shook his head. "Krellians have a warrior culture. They see surrender as worse than death. Some of them might give up, but most will choose to fight. And your Marines will do exactly what they are trained to do, efficiently and without any hesitation." On the surface, the 60 seconds expired. Ryan marked the Krellian positions that had not responded with white flags. All teams, you are cleared to engage. Rules of engagement are as follows. Anyone pointing a weapon at you is a legitimate target. Minimize damage to colony structures. Execute the mission. What followed was not really a battle. It was a demonstration of military precision and overwhelming skill. The Marines moved through the colony in coordinated teams. Their armor had sensors that could see through walls and around corners. They knew exactly where every Krellian soldier was positioned. They knew every possible escape route. They knew every potential ambush point. The Krellians, despite their reputation as fearsome warriors, found themselves completely outmatched. Human Marines fought with a level of coordination that seemed impossible. They moved like they shared a single mind. Each soldier anticipated the actions of the others with uncanny precision. Within 20 minutes, the fighting was completely over. Most of the Krellian ground forces had been either captured or neutralized. Those who had surrendered immediately were treated professionally, though coldly. Those who had fought to the end were mourned by no one. Ryan reached the command center and gave the signal for the doors to be opened. When they unsealed, he found himself looking at 12 exhausted but triumphant humans and a very shaken alien director. "Lieutenant Foster," Ryan said, recognizing Danny's rank insignia from his reserve military commission. "I am glad to see you held the line." Danny straightened up despite his exhaustion. "We had good motivation, sir. We knew you were coming. Damn right we were coming. Let us get all of you topside. Medical teams are setting up emergency treatment areas." As the survivors filed out, Ryan took in all the details. He saw the makeshift defenses, the improvised weapons, and all the evidence of a desperate last stand. His respect for these civilians grew with every detail he noticed. "You 12 did all this? You held off 300 soldiers for 6 hours?" Karen managed a tired smile. "We are humans, Captain. It is what we do." On the Valiant, Admiral Jacob Hayes received the all-clear signal from the surface. All human civilians had been recovered alive. Casualties among the other colonists were heavy but not total. The Krellian forces were either dead, captured, or had fled. Communications. "Connect me with Commander Thelvan." The Council Fleet Commander appeared on the screen. His tentacles were showing colors that Jacob had learned to interpret as shock and awe. "Admiral Hayes, I have reviewed all the tactical data from your assault. Your fleet's performance was truly extraordinary. We protect our own, Commander. That principle is not negotiable. Yes, I am beginning to understand this fundamental truth about your species. The Krellians who escaped will spread word of what happened here today." Jacob nodded. "Good. Let every pirate in this sector know our message clearly. Attack a colony with humans on it and we will respond with overwhelming force. We do not believe in proportional responses. We do not negotiate with pirates. We bring everything we have and we end the threat permanently. Some members of the Council will say you overreacted. That sending an entire fleet for 12 civilians was excessive and unnecessary. Then they do not understand humans, Commander. Those were not just 12 civilians. They were our people, and we will cross the entire galaxy for just one of our own if we have to do it." Thelvan's tentacles shifted to colors that Jacob recognized as deep respect. "I will include that information in my report. I suspect the Council's perception of humanity will change significantly after today. They had better change their perception, because this is who we are. We are Deathworlders, but we are loyal Deathworlders. Attack our civilians and you call down the thunder on your heads." Medical teams worked through the colony, treating the wounded and evacuating the most critical cases. The 12 humans were examined by medical corpsmen who seemed personally offended that they had been put in such danger. "You folks did really good work," one medic told Danny as she treated a cut on his forehead. "Really good. But next time, maybe do not wait 6 hours to call for help." Danny laughed despite his exhaustion. "We knew you were running training exercises nearby. We figured you would want something more exciting than practice drills." Exciting is one word for it. The Admiral pushed this fleet so hard I honestly thought the engines would melt. We made it here in 5 hours instead of the predicted 8. He did all that for 12 civilians? The medic looked at him like he had said something stupid. He would have done it for one person. That is the whole point of everything. That is why we serve in the military, so our people know that no matter where they are, no matter how far from home they might be, if they call for help, we come. Always. Karen overheard the conversation and felt tears threatening to come again. She had lived in space for many years. She had worked alongside dozens of different species. She had heard countless times that humans were unusual. But hearing it explained so simply, understanding just how deeply this principle ran through human military culture, struck her very profoundly. They really would come for just one person. They would risk everything they had for a single human life. Vexillor approached Admiral Hayes as the evacuation work continued. The Xanthari director had regained some of his normal composure, but his scales still showed traces of the terror he had experienced. "Admiral, I must apologize to you. I initially opposed including humans in this colony. I believed the risk was too great. I thought your species was too dangerous to work alongside." Jacob regarded him with a cool expression. "And what do you think now? Now I understand the truth. You are dangerous, yes. That part was correct. But you are only dangerous to those who threaten you or threaten your people. Your 12 civilians held off an entire army because they knew, with absolute certainty, that you would come for them. That kind of trust, that kind of loyalty between people, I have never seen it in any other species. It is called no one left behind, Director. It is not just a saying or a motto. It is our sacred promise to every human who serves in the military, who explores space, who ventures into the darkness. Call for help and we will come, no matter what obstacles stand in our way, no matter where you are, no matter what the cost might be. The cost today was very significant. Fuel, ammunition, the risk to your entire fleet. All of that for 12 people." Jacob smiled, and it was not a friendly expression. "If you think this operation was expensive, Director, then imagine the cost if we had not come. Imagine what kind of message that would send to every hostile force in the galaxy, that humanity abandons its own people, that we let pirates take our civilians without any response. The real cost would have been measured in every single human colony in this sector suddenly becoming easy targets, because everyone would know we do not back up our promises with action." He leaned closer to the director. "We came here in overwhelming force to send a very clear message, not just to the Krellians, but to everyone who might be watching. You want to see how seriously humanity takes the protection of our civilians? Look at this fleet. Look at these Marines. Look at what we brought to this fight, and understand that we would have brought twice as much if we had needed to do so." Vexillar's scales rippled as understanding dawned. This whole operation was a demonstration of power. This was a promise kept. The demonstration of power is just a beneficial side effect. As the Valiant prepared to return to regular patrol duties, Jacob stood in his ready room reviewing all the after-action reports. The mission had been a complete success by every measure. All human civilians were recovered alive. Enemy forces had been destroyed or scattered to the winds. The message had been sent clearly, but he knew this was just the beginning of something larger. Word would spread very fast. 3 weeks after the incident at Theta 7, the Galactic Council called an emergency session. The attack on the colony and humanity's response had sent shockwaves through the entire political landscape of known space. Representatives from hundreds of different species gathered in the Grand Chamber on Council Prime. This was a massive space station that served as the seat of the galactic government. Ambassador Claire Watson represented humanity at this important meeting. She had been given extensive briefings on the Theta 7 incident. She knew this session would be difficult and contentious. The chamber fell completely silent as Council Arbiter Kelmoth called the session to order. He was a towering insectoid being with compound eyes that could see in spectrums that humans could barely imagine. "We are here to discuss the incident at mining colony Theta 7, Kelmoth announced. His translated voice echoed through the massive chamber. "Specifically, we must address humanity's military response to what was essentially a pirate raid." A Vrixian delegate stood up immediately. His blue skin was flushed with clear agitation. "Arbiter, humanity's response was completely disproportionate to the threat. They deployed an entire war fleet to rescue just a handful of civilians. This represents a dangerous militarization of what should have been handled as a simple law enforcement matter." Murmurs of agreement rippled through several of the alien delegations. Claire remained seated with a neutral expression on her face. She had been warned that this would happen. Another delegate spoke up. This one was from the Centauri Collective. Furthermore, humanity's flagship commander issued what essentially amounts to a death threat against all Krellian forces. The level of force that was used to repel simple pirates was completely excessive. 3 Krellian ships were destroyed outright without any attempt at negotiation. "Simple pirates?" Claire spoke quietly, but somehow her voice carried through the entire chamber. "Is that what you call an armed assault on a civilian mining colony? Simple piracy? The Krellian warband consisted of lightly armed raiders, the Vrixian delegate countered. They could easily have been handled by a small council security force. Instead, humanity responded with battleships, marine assault forces, and enough firepower to level a small moon. Claire stood up slowly. Something in her posture made several nearby delegates lean back nervously in their seats. Let me make absolutely sure I understand the Council's position here. When pirates attack a colony with humans living on it, threaten to kill our civilians and trap them in a desperate siege for survival, the Council believes we should have sent a small security force and just hoped for the best outcome. We believe in proportional responses to threats, the Centauri delegate said firmly, not in overwhelming displays of military force. Tell me something, Claire said, and her voice was taking on a sharp edge. How many of your people were stationed on Theta 7? The delegate hesitated noticeably. I do not believe there were any Centauri colonists present there. Exactly right. There were no Centauri there. There were Xanthari, Galdorians, and 4 other species represented. But when the Krellians attacked with lethal intent, it was the 12 humans who organized the entire defense. It was humans who turned a helpless colony into a defendable fortress. It was humans who held the line for 6 brutal hours against impossible odds because they absolutely knew with complete certainty that we would come for them no matter what. She pulled up a holographic display that showed the extensive damage to Theta 7. This is what your so-called simple pirates did to that colony. They killed 37 innocent colonists before we arrived. They would have killed every single person there if given enough time. And you want to criticize us for responding with overwhelming force? You sent an entire fleet, the Vrixian delegate protested loudly. For just 12 people. Yes, Claire said with absolute certainty in her voice. We sent an entire fleet for 12 people. We would have sent 2 complete fleets if that had been necessary. We would have sent the entire Earth Navy if that is what the situation required, because those 12 people are ours and we do not ever abandon our own. Kelmoth raised one of his claws to call for silence. Ambassador Watson, the Council does understand humanity's protective instincts toward your own kind. But you must try to understand our deep concern here. Your response was not merely protective in nature. It was a deliberate demonstration of overwhelming military might. You sent a very clear message that goes far beyond simply defending a single colony. You are absolutely correct, Claire agreed without hesitation. We sent a message. We sent it loud and clear to every pirate, raider, and hostile force operating in this entire sector. The message is very simple and easy to understand. Touch our people, and we will respond with absolutely everything we have available. Not proportionally, not reasonably, with everything at our disposal. That is the attitude of a warrior race, another delegate said with obvious disapproval, not the attitude of a civilized society. Claire smiled, and several delegates found the expression deeply unsettling. We are a warrior race. That part is completely true. We come from a planet that tried very hard to kill us every single day for millions of years. We evolved specifically to fight back against predators, against diseases, against natural disasters, and even against each other. We learned how to cooperate with each other. We learned how to plan for the future. We learned to never give up no matter how terrible things became. And we learned one fundamental lesson that is carved into the heart of every human who ventures out into space. We survive together or we do not survive at all. She brought up another hologram. This one showed Admiral Hayes' fleet arriving at Theta 7 at high speed. Look at this carefully. Look at how incredibly fast we moved. Do you understand why we could respond so quickly? Because we planned for exactly this kind of situation. Every single human fleet operating in space is positioned with the basic assumption that they might need to rescue civilians at a moment's notice. Every ship is maintained at full combat readiness at all times. Every Marine is extensively trained for extraction operations in hostile environments. We do not simply hope that we will not need to rescue our people. We actively plan for when we will need to do it. This is absolute madness, the Vrixian delegate muttered loud enough for others to hear. You structure your entire military organization around worst-case scenarios. No, Claire corrected him firmly. We structure our military around keeping our sacred promises. And our promise to every human living in space is very simple and clear. If you need us, we will come. No matter where you are, no matter when you call, no matter what the cost might be. That is not madness. That is loyalty. Commander Thelvan had been invited to give his direct testimony. He stood up now. If I may be permitted to speak, Arbiter. I personally witnessed the human response with my own eyes. I was initially shocked by their incredible speed and the overwhelming force they brought. But I must tell this council what I learned that day. The chamber became quiet to hear the council military officer's perspective. I learned that when humans say "no one left behind," they mean those words with absolute literal precision. Their fleet commander deliberately risked causing serious damage to his ships by pushing them far beyond all recommended safety speeds. Why would he do this? To reach 12 civilians just a few minutes faster. Their Marines deployed directly into an active combat zone without any hesitation whatsoever. Why would they take such risks? Because those civilians were counting on them to arrive. Thelvan's tentacles displayed colors that indicated deep respect. I have served in the Council military forces for 30 standard years. I have never seen that level of dedication to protecting civilians. That absolute certainty that every single life has value and must be protected. The humans trapped on Theta 7 held off 300 attacking soldiers because they trusted completely that their fleet would come. And their fleet broke every safety regulation in existence to ensure that trust was completely justified. You speak as if this reckless behavior is somehow admirable, the Vrixian delegate said with clear disapproval. But it is simply reckless and dangerous. Perhaps it is reckless by our standards, Thelvan agreed calmly. But it is also remarkably effective. The Krellian warband that attacked Theta 7 has completely dissolved as a fighting force. Their survivors are telling stories about the human fleet that make them sound like demons from ancient nightmares. Every pirate operating in 3 entire sectors is now actively avoiding any target that might have humans present on it. Claire nodded in agreement. Our supposedly disproportionate response has made the entire region significantly safer. Not just safer for humans, but safer for absolutely everyone. Because pirates and raiders now know with certainty that attacking any colony might result in a human fleet appearing. And we absolutely do not negotiate with people who threaten civilians. Kelmoth considered this information carefully. You have made your point clearly, Ambassador. But the Council must ask an important question. Where does this pattern of behavior end? If humanity responds this way to every single incident, we will face constant military escalation throughout known space. It ends when people stop attacking our colonies, Claire said with. Kelmoth's mandibles clicked together thoughtfully as he considered everything that had been said. The massive chamber remained silent, waiting for the Arbiter to speak. Finally, he addressed the entire assembly. The Council will take Ambassador Watson's words under very serious advisement. But all of you must understand clearly that humanity's actions will be watched extremely carefully going forward. The galaxy is simply not accustomed to such militant protectiveness of civilians. Claire stood firm and met his compound gaze directly. Then the galaxy will simply have to become accustomed to it, Arbiter. Because we are not changing our fundamental nature. Not for the Council, not for anyone in known space. Our people trust us completely to come for them when they need help. And we will never ever betray that sacred trust. The session was formally adjourned, but the real conversations were only just beginning. As delegates filed out of the Grand Chamber, many approached Claire privately. Some expressed concern about humanity's military capabilities. Others, particularly those from smaller species who had been victims of piracy themselves, expressed quiet admiration and even gratitude. A delegate from a small mining species called the Torvans approached Claire cautiously. Ambassador Watson, my people operate 17 small mining colonies in dangerous regions. We have lost 3 complete colonies to pirate raids in the past 5 years. Would humanity consider extending protection to non-human colonies? Claire considered the question very carefully. That would need to be negotiated through proper diplomatic channels. But I can tell you this much. Humans do not like bullies, and we especially do not like pirates who prey on civilians. If your people wanted to discuss a mutual defense agreement, I suspect my government would be very interested in that conversation. The Torvan's eyes brightened with hope. I will communicate this to my homeworld immediately. As more delegates approached with similar questions, Claire realized something important. The demonstration at Theta 7 had not just sent a message to pirates and raiders. It had also shown every small, vulnerable species in the galaxy that there was now a powerful ally who actually cared about protecting civilians. Back on Earth, in a small ceremony at Fleet Command headquarters, Admiral Jacob Hayes stood before a room filled with officers and civilians. Among the honored guests were Danny Foster, Karen Mitchell, and the other 10 humans who had defended Theta 7 so bravely. We are here today to formally recognize extraordinary courage under extremely difficult circumstances, Jacob began. His voice carried the weight of genuine respect. When these 12 individuals faced overwhelming odds, they did not surrender to despair. They did not give up hope. They organized a defense, held their ground, and trusted completely that we would come for them. And because of their courage, because of their unshakable faith, we were able to save not just them but nearly 200 other beings from certain death. He presented each of them with the Civilian Medal of Valor. This was one of the highest honors that could be given to non-military personnel. As he shook hands with each recipient and exchanged quiet words of respect, the audience applauded warmly. When Jacob reached Danny, he paused for a moment. "You did truly exceptional work, Lieutenant. Have you ever considered coming off reserve status and returning to active duty?" Danny smiled, despite still being somewhat sore from his ordeal. "Ask me again when I am not still recovering from holding off Krellian pirates using nothing but mining equipment and pure stubbornness." The audience laughed at that. The ceremony ended with sustained applause and many congratulations. But as the room gradually cleared, Jacob found himself standing alone with Claire Watson, who had returned from Council Prime just that morning. "How did the Council actually take our message?" Jacob asked directly. "About as well as we expected them to," Claire replied honestly. There was lots of concern expressed about disproportionate responses and human militarism. But I believe we made our fundamental point very clear. Which point was that exactly? That we genuinely mean what we say. That no one left behind is not just an empty slogan or propaganda. That any species in the galaxy can count on us as reliable allies. But anyone who threatens our people should expect to face the full weight of human military capability. Jacob nodded slowly in understanding. "Did you tell them about our new fleet deployment plan?" Claire smiled slightly. "I did mention it. They were not particularly thrilled to learn that we are positioning additional fleets throughout space to ensure maximum 6-hour response times to any human colony, anywhere. They will get over their concerns eventually. Besides, those fleets will protect everyone in those sectors, not just human colonies." "That is exactly true. Commander Thelvan actually spoke strongly in our favor during the session. He said he has never witnessed such genuine dedication to protecting civilian lives. I think we may have actually won some real respect today despite all the controversy." "That is good to hear, because this is simply who we are as a species. We are the people who crawled out of a living hell and somehow learned to thrive in it. We are the Deathworlders who decided that merely surviving was not good enough. We had to protect each other as well. And anyone who forgets that important lesson will learn it the hard way." On Theta 7, reconstruction work was already well underway. New colonists were arriving steadily, and surprisingly many more species now specifically wanted to work at facilities that had human presence. The story of 12 humans holding off an entire army had spread rapidly throughout known space. With that story came a growing realization among many species. Working alongside humans meant being protected by humans if danger arose. Director Vexillar had chosen to remain with the rebuilt colony. He was watching a new group of human engineers arrive on the morning transport. He approached them with his scales displaying friendly, welcoming colors. "Welcome to Theta 7. I trust you have all heard about what happened here recently." One of the engineers, a cheerful woman named Beth Green, nodded enthusiastically. "We definitely heard the story. 12 humans held off 300 pirates for 6 hours. That is one hell of a story to live up to. Does it concern you at all choosing to work at a location that was so recently attacked?" Beth actually laughed out loud at the question. "Are you kidding me, Director? This is probably the safest location in this entire sector right now. Every single pirate within 10 parsecs knows exactly what happens if they attack a colony with humans stationed on it. We could literally post our exact coordinates on an open communication channel and nobody would dare touch us." Vexillar realized with some surprise that she was absolutely right. Theta 7 had transformed almost overnight from a vulnerable outpost into one of the most secure locations in the entire region, not because of advanced weapons or powerful shields, but simply because everyone now knew a fundamental truth. Attack this place and the human fleet comes with overwhelming force. That evening, as Beth and her engineering team settled into their new quarters, she sent a simple message back to her family on Earth. "Arrived safely at Theta 7. Please do not worry about that pirate incident you might have heard about. I am here with 11 other humans, and if anything dangerous happens, they will send an entire fleet to get us." Feeling pretty good about that arrangement, her mother replied almost immediately, "Of course they will come for you, sweetheart. That is just what we do." In the vast darkness of space, human warships continued their endless patrols. In every sector, in every corner of known space where humans lived and worked and explored, the fleet maintained its constant vigil. Not actively looking for fights, but always ready for them. Not seeking war, but fully prepared to wage it with overwhelming force if that became necessary. Because humanity had learned something important long ago on a hostile planet that tried to kill them constantly. They had learned that survival meant standing together no matter what. That real protection meant taking action, not just making empty promises. That promises kept were worth absolutely any price that had to be paid. The galaxy was learning that same lesson now, taught by the events at Theta 7, and the galaxy would remember it for a very long time to come. In the months that followed the incident, pirate activity in human-occupied sectors dropped dramatically. Raiders who had once seen isolated colonies as easy targets now gave them extremely wide distances. The few who tested humanity's resolve learned very quickly that the response at Theta 7 had not been unusual or exceptional. It was simply standard human policy: attack our people and we come for you. More than that, dozens of smaller species began approaching Earth diplomatically. They wanted trade agreements, mutual defense pacts, and cultural exchanges. They had seen how humans protected their own, and they wanted to be part of that protective umbrella. Humanity found itself in an unexpected position. They had not sought to become a major galactic power. They had simply refused to abandon their people. But that refusal, that absolute commitment to protecting their own, had earned them something more valuable than fear. It had earned them respect. Ambassador Claire Watson stood in her office on Council Prime, looking out at the stars. Her assistant brought her the latest reports: 15 new diplomatic initiatives, 8 proposed defense agreements, 3